We're taking a look at who fought today. Who means a peninsula of land in English. When this fort was built, it was a single story building because it was subsiding a bit. They said money and flooding, which they said that pumps were going all the time to pump the water out, even back then. But it is a bit weird when you see this high tide, a bit of flooding, because in it you'll see the pictures, like for instance, there's that one, right? But you see here, there's a lot more land, and to me, this, what is this here? That might be another one, or was? Yeah, this is a star fort. This was a star fort. This whole thing. Yeah, that was. But anyway, back to this one, because it's made me think a little bit. I do think that this one is bigger, but this is a redoubt fort, and to the outside world it will only look 1 story high. So let's go and have a look. It would have looked, well, there you go, there's a good picture of it there. It would only look that high out of the ground. So when it's flooded, it's with more land when it's not flooded, but you see it's only 1 single story high. Eastbourne, this one is called a redoubt fort, which means it goes under the ground. Goodness knows how deep it goes and what tunnels it joins with and the whole thing. But those tunnels, that fort goes down. I reckon it's the same for this one. And then when we were looking at this, or let's put this picture back on. When we see it like this, so you know now that all this land's gone and all this land is now underwater because it's underwater. It made me think of these. It made me think of these places. Oh, not those ones, these. Now in the sea, but now they look quite similar. Bigger, but similar to the other one. Why can't they tell us that these were made on land and that a flood has happened and now they're in the sea? And now there are these 3 out in the sea. I suppose that one very abandoned. These ones have been, I think, turned into other things. I think this one was a hotel. Yeah, and you sat down there. So obviously these are bigger, but it's the same. Well, maybe they're not the same, but they look like the redoubt fort. But it made me think of these because these are in water. Obviously they're not that far from land. So you can see the water has flooded in, and probably not even that long ago. But they were on land originally. And there's another one. I think that's it there. So you've got the 3. Don't know why that one would be there. Maybe it was still a water I don't know, but there's one there and one there. They would have been on land. There you go. Those are the forts. So the land beneath them has gone now. And they are bigger, but maybe Fu Fort will look like that in the future if the water goes up a bit more. But yeah, because but it's just not as big as them. But it looks more like the redoubt fort, doesn't it? So supposedly the other one has an extra layer put on top. But it does look a bit like one of these, especially when you see what it's like inside. But anyway, the ones for the off of the Isle of Wight in the Solent Sea there, or Solent River, but that's what it's called there, the Solent. They've been built on extra, so it could have looked more like this. See, there's the bottom bit. Some are a bit like that, and then they built a few stories on top. And then if the water came in and they'd done that, then this would have looked like the others. But they said subsidence and stuff, but they still managed to put another, after saying subsidence and they were only going 1 story high. I don't, is that the 1 story then? Or maybe that's, yes, that's the 1 story, isn't it? That is 1 story. Well, anyway, do you think that looks a bit like the Redoubt Fort in Eastbourne, or do you think it looks more like the ones out in the sea? Anyway, it's just a thought. Let's watch the video now.
Location on the southeast coast of England. Centuries of numerous invasions coming from all over mainland Europe, as well as the ever-increasing threat from France, prompted the formation of the Royal Commission of the Defence of the United Kingdom in 1859. After several reports, the Commission concluded that Britain's current fleet and army did not provide sufficient defence against an invasion from the southeast, and in response, many coastal batteries and land forts were commissioned. Amongst these projects were 2 sister forts situated on islands either side of the mouth of the River Medway. Darnet Fort on Darnet Ness and Hoe Fort on Hoe Ness. These both originally planned to include 2 tiers of 9-inch rifled muzzle-loading guns, but due to subsidence issues and growing costs, plans changed to a single tier of gun placements. The forts were both decommissioned before the outbreak of World War I. Whilst Darnet Fort was deliberately flooded upon abandonment to avoid vandalism and to minimise access, Hoe Fort is still very well preserved, perhaps in part due to private ownership of the island by Medway ports, who threatened to prosecute trespassers with signs across the length of the island. Access to both islands is difficult and potentially dangerous due to mud at low tide and unmanaged vegetation growth surrounding the forts. Abandoned barges surround the islands, sunken in shallow waters, which are revealed at low tide.
What you can't actually see when you're actually on the land is that it's grown over these concrete barges so much. So you've got one here, standing on one at the minute. Yes, other than the big hole here, you will never have a clue. There is the fort in the distance. That's where we're heading to now. Unfortunately, as pretty as it looks, this has not been a nice one to walk into. My wellies are full of rubbish. I got a bin bag round one of them to try and protect my leg, but I don't think that's worked. Em and Stu are drying off.
With a white towel.
Wasn't the nicest, was it, guys?
No.
It was.